I'm very excited for our AuthorConnect Chat today, and excited to welcome you all back. As you know, we do this monthly. I am your host, Carlin Hickson. I work with authors, publications, speakers bureau, publicists, marketers, sales reps, editors, and other incredible industry partners that we have here at BookPal, where we believe books have the power to ignite continuous learning and growth. Our guest today will be providing some insights from his latest book, The Freedom Formula, and then we'll have a little time for Q&A chat. As with every AuthorConnect chat, please do feel free to submit your questions, any questions you have at any time during the webinar, using the chat function or Q&A boxes below. A quick reminder just to keep yourself muted during today's presentation and chat. And as always, we will be sending out the webinar recording to all attendees next week. A Wall Street Journal and Business Week bestselling author of over 11 business and financial books, our guest's how-to business and financial articles have appeared in over 6,500 periodicals across the US, and I am elated to have him on today. A former Olympic-level athlete turned business multimillionaire, he truly is the epitome of the ultimate American success story. As founder and CEO of Maui Mastermind, he and the Maui coaching team have helped over 100,000 clients buy, build, and sell billions of dollars of business assets over the past 20 years. Maui Mastermind helps business owners build companies they love owning again, for the value they create, the lives they touch, the profits they earn, the teams they employ, and the freedom they enjoy. Their clients have enjoyed an average annual growth rate 5 times higher than the average privately held company, which is incredible, while at the same time reducing their company's reliance on them as owners by an average of 191%. Our guest is co-author, along with Priceline.com's co-founder Jeff Hoffman, of Scale, 7 Proven Principles to Grow Your Business and Get Your Life Back, as well as his latest book, which we're talking about today, The Freedom Formula, How to Succeed in Business Without Sacrificing Your Family, Health, or Life. David and his wife, Heather, and their 3 sons live in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And again, I'm so thrilled to welcome David Finkel.
Thank you, Carl. It's a little embarrassing to hear it said that way, but I appreciate it. It's a joy to be with you here today.
Excellent. So yeah, I would love to kind of just kick it off with letting you talk to us a little bit about the Freedom Formula, what you've heard since it came out last fall. It's such an amazing book.
Yeah, so I mean, the preface or the premise behind the book is, let's face it, we wake up in the morning and the first thing we do is reach over to our bedstand and we pull up our cell phone and we check email or whatever app feed we need to do before our head even lifts from the pillow. We're in the evening times with our family, but we're sneaking glances. And today's word, it's not even surreptitiously. We're just blatantly doing work all the time. And if this was going to help us be more successful, I would say that that's a viable choice, but it's not. It's actually hurting our success as a business leader. It's hurting our professional success. And so I wrote the book with this idea of how do the most successful business people create amazing results and still have a life? Everyone says, Carlin, we should work smarter, but what's not so obvious is how do you operationalize working smarter in the real business world? And so this book is basically the sum total of the last decade of what I've done inside of the companies that I've built to work smarter, to get my people to systematically, structurally, by design, working smarter. And I think that's a pretty important part. I mean, I want to acknowledge that it's wonderful to be ambitious, but in the world, I think there's these two models of how the economy works. There's the time and effort economy, and whereby people think hours, effort, and attitude are what I'm doing and getting paid for. Whereas really most of us don't realize it, but we operate in the value economy. What we really get paid for over time is the value you create. And when we come from that second model, we act different in our business. We manage different in our business. We lead different in our business, because what matters most is the result that we're generating. So this book was my best attempt to put that to really clear, practical steps. Here's what you do, step 1, step 2.
Absolutely. Carla actually commented that this has been a big struggle for her, finding balance in her life again. And I think even more so now with all of the struggles, obviously, of our lifestyle, and work and life balance is kind of a little bit even harder, I think, right now that it's bleeding into the home. Um, I guess what would be some of your best advice, or what are some of your clients and companies that you work with? What are they saying about how to tackle this in a meaningful way?
Yeah. So let's start with chapter 2 of the book. I'm going to jump there. This is the chapter on time mastery. And I'll give 2 or 3 quick, very, very useful, proven over the last 20-year techniques that work to help people manage their time intelligently, effectively better. So one is, we call it the time value matrix. Most people have this distinction around time. They have this 80-20 rule, which is a great thing. It's just not the best thing. So we think about this as 80% of what we do is this massive junk that creates very little value, 20%. But then we have this leveraged 20% that creates 80% of the value. That's pretty cool. 4% less work, probably 4 times less work generating 4 times the output. But if we take that same 80-20 rule and apply it again, 20% of the 20% generates 80% of the 80%. And that works out for the math part. This 4% sweet spot, which we call B time, generates 64% of your value. And if you do it one more time, and bear with me, I'll do the math for everybody here, 20% of the 20% of the 20% gives me 80% of the 80% of the 80%. And that works out, this magic 1% A time gives me half the value. And so most people, when they do, is they don't realize that they give over, by how they structure their week and their day, most of their best hours to D activities. I look at it like a buffet. I love buffets. I haven't been to one for a while, but I miss them. And so you go to a buffet, the most important thing is that first plate of food. If I fill up my plate with junk calories, then I'm going to overeat and not get really good nutrition. In my business day, if I can make sure that I fill at least a block of time, and we'll get into what we call focus days versus push days, that first plate of food, that first plate of time with my A or B level activities, even if I do junk stuff with the other part of my day, I've created so much value from that best work. So to do our best work, we need to reclaim blocks of our best time. Now, that's great. Everyone says, I know that, but most people don't do that. And so here's a simple technique to do that. Number one, I write down on paper, what are my A and B level activities? What are my D activities? If I don't know what they are in writing, I can guarantee you I won't behave them. I won't act them, because I need them concretely defined. If I work for somebody else, I should talk with my manager. Hey, Carlin, what do you think? This is what I think my A and B level activities are. This is what I think my low value D stuff is. Do you agree? And if you do, great. If you don't, you'll help me know how you look at me as my manager. Once I've got that in writing, and we do this, we eat our own cooking inside my business coaching company, Maui Masteron. We do the same thing, and we revisit it each year for each of our team members. Now I say, okay, now I need to carve out blocks of my best time. And so what I do is I create a distinction called focus days versus push days. So I start with one focus day a week. And on my focus day, I put in my calendar as a recurring appointment, whether I use Google's calendar function or I use Outlook, doesn't matter. I can do it in both. As a recurring calendar, I put in a 2 to 4 hour block of time, one day a week to start with. I call this my focus time. I explain to my team what I'm doing. I ask for their support. I might even trade out. If we're peers in an office, Carlin, I might say, can you cover my email and my phone for 4 hours every Thursday? And you say, great, you'll do it for me every Tuesday. So we can be intelligent about this part, and it gives me a block of time. And then every other day of the week starts off as my push day. I'm just pushing my projects one step down. And on my push days, I still carve out 1 hour block on each of those days for focus time. So all I'm changing out of my entire schedule is one day a week, I'm giving myself a 2 to 4 hour block. And then the other 3 to 4 days, I'm giving myself a 1 hour block. That's giving me back somewhere between 4 to 8 hours, depending. And most people, if you target 5 as your initial goal, wonderful. 5 hours per week over an entire year is the equivalent of 9 to 10 weeks, depending how many hours per week you work, 9 to 10 weeks of your very best time back in blocks of uninterrupted time. I turn off my phone. I turn my iWatch on to silent vibrate or to turn it off. I make sure my app feeds aren't going on. For me, I actually turn off my email program, because if I don't do that, I get sucked back in. And if I do that, what I'll do is in that time, I can create so much value that the other time becomes incidental. We all know that if I said this to any business person, hey, if I gave you back 5 hours of uninterrupted time per week in 2 or 3 blocks throughout the week, could you create 10%, 20%, 30% more value for your company? Everyone says yes. They all have projects that are important, but they just don't have time to get to. So that's a technique we use, we call it the time value matrix. And that would be one simple one that I would really encourage people to take onto right away. And I say it's got to be on their phone, Carlin. If they don't have it blocked off as recurring appointments, good intentions don't work. Design it right in. Because when I've worked with so many people, when I see it on their calendar, more times than not, they respect it. And for me, I'll go one step further. I actually set the stage for the next day. So when I leave the office, today is a Tuesday. So
Mhm.
today was my focus day. Before I left yesterday on Monday, I laid out 2 things that I wanted to get done this morning, which for me were high value. One about a particular legal matter that my company's dealing with, and the second for a meeting with my COO that I have later this afternoon. I wanted to go through her agenda and spend some real concentrated time on it. So I set the stage the day before, which makes it much more likely when I come in, I get this running start with it.
That is so smart. Yeah, I agree. And I feel like as someone, I'm definitely guilty. I kind of live in my inbox a little too much. And reading your book really made me think, okay, I could be deriving more value and more relationship oriented discussions, outreach, even thinking of different, targets or people that I should be in contact with. And if I carved out, 4 to 5 hours, 5 hours would be great per week, really to focus on that, I think I'd be spending my time more wisely rather than just kind of answering, emails that maybe fall into that C and D category.
Yeah.
Do you find that a lot of clients and partners and companies really do struggle with defining what those A and B level? Because I mean, we're a smaller company too, and I think I sometimes struggle like, okay, I think this is what I think, and I should have a conversation with my boss. But I guess from a strategic organizational level, do you find that something that companies really struggle with?
Yeah, it's interesting. So in small business, I think they do it better. Mid to large size companies, my experience has been they obscure it a little bit. There's people are so afraid of looking maybe a little bit silly for not knowing the answer. But I'll tell you, it is as someone who has had hired hundreds of people who've worked for me over the years. Um, if someone were to come to me and say, David, here's what I think that I'm on the payroll to do. Here's what I think that I do that creates the most value for the company. And I just want to get your take on this so that my best time goes here. If someone did that to me, my estimation of their ability just skyrocketed. But people are scared, especially in larger organizations, because we think of things like we should already know this, et cetera. So for example, for the Freedom Formula, for years I've worked with small and mid-sized CEOs, COOs, and other types of companies. That's what our company does. But I knew that for this book, I wanted to also get the perspective of people who work for the Fortune 500 companies. And so I did several different projects with some of the world's largest enterprises. I can't say who they are because these are companies that made me sign all these NDAs, but several of them were in the top 50 in terms of market caps in the world. I mean, these are some large companies. And consistently, one of the things I saw was this little bit of fear over not looking polished or professional. Yet, when I talked with the people that were the VPs or the executive vice presidents of these different parts that I was working with, and I asked them, what would you think if a team member came to you and did what I've just shared? Their answer was consistent. They would think this person is even smarter. They would be on the lookout to see how this person's career was going to advance. So don't be shy with that. Second comment here, Carlin, no one initially knows the difference between A and B. They just know A and B is better than C and D. So don't worry about the distinction between A and B. We know it's magnitude better, but over time you'll start to have those two kind of separate out when you start playing with this. The D is easy. If I didn't do it, if there's no real consequence, it's a D activity. If it's something I could have some other staff member do for $15 to $25 an hour, it's a D level activity by definition for most everyone who's going to actually read this book. C activities, think about that as that's what you tend to think about as your job. So for example, if I worked in a professional firm and I was a CPA, doing the actual accounting work for me is probably a C activity. If it's a billable hour, it's probably a C activity. Organizing the project, securing the client, taking that engagement and turning it into a larger project opportunity. Those are probably the A and B level activities depending on the person. If my job is someone's assistant, well, then probably anything that I do that gives them back, where 1 hour with me gives them back 5 or more hours for them, that's probably an A or B level activity. If it's something that makes them more efficient, like when I go to a meeting, I open up my Outlook calendar and there's all the stuff for the meeting right there in the appointment memo that Emily, one of my assistants, puts in there. That's a B level activity for her. It's not quite an A level, but it's a B level activity for her because it makes me more efficient. So I think if we can ask, and if we can not worry about A or B, just know that A and B are both better than C and D, and focus on D. We rob from D. We delete them, we defer them, we delegate them, or we design them out, the 4 Ds. And of those 4, one of the chapters of the book, we talk about design and how to leverage design as an accelerator to create more freedom for a business and for a business leader. Well, design is one I love. So think about this. You know, how many times do you get the same e-letter that you never want to read that you delete every single day? Why not unsubscribe or create a junk email account that goes automatically to a folder? Like I've got a junk email, djunk@mauimastermind.com. It goes to me, but automatically goes to a junk folder. When I register for anything, that's the email I give because I don't want people filling my inbox with junky stuff. I do that, I design out probably 30% of the email that I used to get just by changing the email that I put in there with that. Now, people don't think about that. How about, you know, having a physician that we work with their practice? Well, they gave the same preoperative instructions to thousands of patients over the last 10 years of their practice. We gave him a suggestion. Why not put it on video? He did it. He created a really good pre-op and post-op video. People watch it. They feel like they had a better experience. Like they subjectively feels like they got more time with the surgeon. Objectively, it saved him probably, I don't know, 100+ hours per year of his time back.
Wow.
Big deal. So we can design things out as well. And then the A and B stuff, that's what we do in our focus blocks. We do our A and B level activities with our email off.
I love that. So the 4 Ds again, so it was delete, delegate, defer, or design out, right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. Everything in your book was just so practical. It was kind of like an aha moment every chapter. So
I appreciate that. I'm a bit of an anal retentive person. So I always got frustrated with these books I would read that had all kinds of wonderful things that I should do,
Mhm.
but they didn't tell me how to do the should do. So
Right.
I've always tried to write, here's concretely what you do with examples. And, you know, for the person who loves to know how to do it, they'll love the book. If the person wants just the high picture inspiration, yeah, maybe a different book would do for you. I tend to be much more of the practical person. That's just my by nature as an entrepreneur. I don't live in an ivory tower. I'm not an academic. I'm just someone who's built companies and sold companies and coached a lot of other people to do the same.
Right. Right. We got a couple comments. Carla was saying, will we get this recording after this is over? Definitely. So you can share that. Michelle had said, it's a wonderful plan. I've been doing this all along, structuring the next day. It's been very helpful. Definitely going to start doing that. Can you tell us more? You had another kind of acronym and assessment that I hadn't heard before, the SUIT assessment, and then the Big Rock report. Can
Yeah.
you go into a little bit more detail about
Yeah,
those?
let me give you 3 of my favorite tools. These are the ones whenever I share them with people, business people just go, got it. I love it. Why didn't someone tell me this years ago? It makes perfect sense. So the first one, the SUIT analysis is this idea that when we look at our department of the company, our company, or my role in a company, I ask myself, what are our strengths? What are the obstacles we're facing towards the big goals that we have? What are the opportunities to get us to those big goals that we have, and what are the threats that I'm facing? And in our company, we talk about creating a strategic plan, a one-page plan. Pardon me, I'm actually going to sneeze here.
Oh, no, no worries.
Allergies right now.
Yeah.
Pardon me about that. Yeah,
No
we're
worries.
working live without a net here, right? So the SUIT analysis for quarterly planning is one way to think about, relative to our major goal, what are the strengths we have, the opportunities, the obstacles, and the threats we have relative to our major goal. We always do it relative to a major goal. It gets me thinking about it. And in our company, we always coach clients that you want to have a rolling one-page quarterly action plan. And the reason why we want it to be one page is because no one in today's world will look at a plan if it's more than one page. You'll do it each quarter, and if it's not one page, what'll happen is you'll just ignore it. But when it's one page, like I can go to my wall right up here, and I've got the action plan for our company, And then each of my leadership team members has for their area of the company a one-page plan. It lays out, here's the 2 or 3 focus areas for this part of the company, the criteria of success, and the action steps and milestones to accomplish that in one page. It's a summary version of it. And each week we look at that and say, well, what do I need to pull off from that action plan to do in my focus time? By definition, because I've done my plan the right way, and that's chapter 3 of the book for anyone who wants to learn how to do that, by definition, those are A and B level things for my area of the company. And if I do focus my discretionary time on these best areas, I'll have the best result for my company and my organization by doing that. So the Big Rock Report is wonderful. So most of us have a to-do list. And if I go to a to-do list for most people, it's like multiple pages, 1 page, 2 pages, 3 pages. Or for those of you who are modern day, you use an online app with your phone, like about 1,000 of these finger flicks. Everything blends together. You don't really have priorities. So the Big Rock Report says, look at your to-do list, look at your action plan. Each week, pull the 1 or 2 big rocks for the week. The 1 or 2 big rocks. And a big rock is defined as something that takes roughly 2 hours or less to do. If it takes more than that, you're not going to get more than that time with uninterrupted in the world. So break it into smaller pieces. So, for example, if one of my focus areas this week is to make this quarter is to make a really key hire. We need a new warehouse manager for my company. And that role is extraordinarily important. I might say my big rock for this week, one of them is to do a very clear description of the candidate that I'm looking to hire. We call that a candidate profile. It might take me an hour to draft that out. And to narrow that down to my list of 5 must-haves for the role, the things that are my non-negotiables that I'm interviewing for. Maybe it takes me an hour and 15 minutes. That's a big rock, an example for that. So I identify that in writing my 1 or 2 big rocks in writing at the beginning of the week. At the end of the week, I close the loop. Did I do them? What are my notes about that? What were my victories, my challenges, my other updates, and what are my big rocks for the next week? Now, for us, for our company and our coaching clients, we do that in an app. Our company designed an app to do that very thing. But many people can do the same thing with just a structured email. What it does is you send that email out each week to the people who are on your team and to your boss. So now your boss knows what you think is important, your team knows what you think is important, and you have public accountability. You get to share what your victories are so you feel like you're making progress, and you notice that. That's, for me, the favorite part. And as a manager, every Monday I get a Big Rock report for my 6 direct reports. I print it up. The part that's been most important, besides knowing what they think's most important, has been their victories. Why? Because I'm oblivious sometimes. Sometimes I get into my own little world, and as a leader, I need to acknowledge progress and celebrate victories with my team. The Big Rock report makes it easy for me. It lowers the management burden. And if I were to go back over the last 5 years since we started doing this and talk with my team, they would tell you that I am a much better leader because they don't feel like I'm that father that they can never please, that nothing's ever good enough, which it used to be. A decade ago, consistently in evaluations, my staff would tell me that. I just didn't know how to cure it. Well, the Big Rock report helped me to cure that by making it aware. And one more tool that I love is the sweet spot analysis. This, again, is in chapter 3. And here's how it works. I say, okay, Carlin, for my area of the company, let's say if I'm the owner, it would be the company as a whole. If I run operations or sales or marketing for my independent area, I ask, what's the single biggest limiting factor in my area of the company? The one constraint, the one thing that holds us back from our biggest goal. If I were a marketing person, I might say leads coming in. Or I might say tracking is our biggest constraint to growth because we don't know which is our winners and which are our losers. So it's hard to feed our winners and starve our losers if I don't know what they are. Great. I brainstorm 10, 15, 20 different ways that I could push that limiting factor back. And then I put it through 2 filters, low-hanging fruit and home run. Low-hanging fruit means easy to do, high likelihood of working. Home run means if it works, it'll have a big impact. So I go to my list and ask, is this a low-hanging fruit? Is this a low-hanging fruit? Is this a low-hanging fruit? And actually, as part of the book, you can actually register your book and you can download the PDF version of this tool and a whole bunch of other ones. So you check the LH box for a low-hanging fruit, you check the HR box for a home run, and what you're looking for are those things that are both low-hanging fruit and home runs, because by definition, those are your sweet spot. Easy to do with a big impact. And I put my best energy with that. So if I'm freaking out and thinking, which marketing tactic should I do? I do a sweet spot analysis. If I should ask myself, what's the best system operationally that I should work on fixing? Or the best idea to fix this broken system? I do a sweet spot analysis. And I always pick the easy to do, high likelihood of working, big impact sweet spot ideas that are there. And again, that's just how we operationalize working smarter.
I love that so much. So does everyone on your leadership team also kind of do that as they have obstacles and then they come talk to you
Yep.
about that's so
So
wonderful.
clients will just know, they know that 7 problems out of 10, a sweet spot analysis solves. It doesn't solve everything, but
Yeah.
that's pretty good odds. I'll take those
Oh,
odds to
absolutely.
Vegas any day.
What about, I'm curious about your thoughts. Obviously, you talk a lot about meetings, and that's such a topic, obviously, in all business of inefficiencies. Like if there's not an agenda, if there's not a decision that's made, or there's not a clear reason why you're having the meeting, then cancel it. How do you feel about meetings and communication in general? And what are some of
Yeah.
your best practices for like the work from home scenario?
This is so timely with the coronavirus stuff going on. And I can't tell you the number of people we've started to work with that are saying things like, well, I know how to manage in person, but how do I manage a remote workforce? So I'm going to point them to a resource, and I'm going to give you several of my best ideas. So the resource, first of all, would be the second half of the book, The Freedom Formula. So the first half says, how can you individually work smarter? How do you operationalize it? The second half has these 5 freedom accelerators, these 5 ways to put it into practice with your team. You know, become a better coach, grow your leadership teams, develop the right culture, design, use leverage better design to run your company. So in the chapter on leverage better design, there's some great stuff on meetings, including what I call the 8 meeting maximizers. So here's a couple that I think really make a big difference. First of all, when I'm managing remotely, I've got to shrink the units of accountability. I don't have all the environmental cues to keep people accountable. They don't see their peers working. They don't see the scoreboard that's up on the wall. They don't fear someone walking by and seeing them doing that stuff on their phone. They don't have any of that. So I have to make sure that while in the workplace I can give people biweekly or monthly accountability, when they're working remotely, that needs to be weekly down to daily with that part. There needs to be some feedback loop that they know that what they do is noticed and seen. Now, the best way of doing this, the inspiring leaders, they don't do this where I see it to come back and be punitive. The way we do it instead is I want to acknowledge the work that they've done. So for example, some of the people on our staff spend hours and hours every day making outbound phone calls on our sales team. It's a tough role. 6, 7 hours in a day of outbound phone calls to people on our database. That's not so easy to do.
Mhm.
So we make sure that they're getting feedback multiple times a week about, hey, yesterday you did this, way to go. By focusing on their behavior quickly and shrinking the time between behavior and them knowing that we've seen and acknowledging that we've seen the behavior, what we do is we get more of that good behavior. So I shrink the units of accountability. 2, I can't tell you the number of meetings that I watch people do without a written agenda. I can't believe that. It's such a waste when you think about it. 9 people on a web meeting, you know, the combined hourly total is about $1,500 per hour you're paying for that meeting. You waste half the meeting. You do an hour and 10 minutes when it could have been done in 40 minutes, 30 minutes because you have no agenda. Have an agenda, distribute it. Now, I got to just tell you, one of the companies I did coaching with for the Freedom Formula book, they did that with that, but they took it to an extreme. They're a Fortune 50 company, one of the largest energy companies in the world. They would distribute what are called pre-reads before their meetings
Oh
that
yeah.
were 50 to 60 pages long. Ridiculous. They knew not everyone read it, so they would still, on the meeting, take the time to tell everyone what was in the pre-read. So not only did they waste people's time before, but they wasted it on the meeting. So your agenda doesn't need to be this long thing. It just needs to say, here's the purpose of the meeting. Here's the 3 items that we're going to go through in order that we're going to go through them, most important to least important. Final comment I'll have here, one of the meeting maximizers, do a recap of the meeting. So if I'm the leader of the meeting, I'll role model this at first, but eventually I want other team members to take this on so that I can grow them as leaders, as managers themselves. So initially, I send a recap that says, you're responsible for this, this, and this by this date in this level of quality, and here's how you close the loop. Who does what, by when, and how are they going to close the loop? You're going to put it on our project management tool. You're going to put it in your weekly Big Rock report. Or you don't have to tell anyone you've done it. We trust that it will get done, depending on the task. And if I want people to take accountability serious, that recap should come out within half an hour of that meeting. The faster the recap comes, the more serious people take the accountability. So for example, when I meet with our marketing head, Kim, she sends me a meeting recap within half an hour. I know she's on it. She owns that part of it for that meeting. Over time, I want other people to take that on. I have to role model it at first. Good leaders role model. It's one of the things we talk about with Be a Better Coach, which is, I think, chapter 7. But once I've role modeled it, I want other people to do that. And if I don't do a recap of who does what, by when, and how they're going to close the loop, I can promise you things will get dropped. Why did you have the meeting if not to get stuff done?
Right. Yeah, that was one of my questions because I thought you had such, and that totally answers it. But I think the hardest thing is sometimes when you have meetings and you have these collaborations or you have these great breakthroughs and action items, and then the follow up kind of falls through, and it's like everything was kind of for naught. So
Yeah.
you don't want that to happen. I guess just having, written other books, I'm just curious, what's been some of the most rewarding feedback from publishing the Freedom Formula, or surprising outcomes or feedback from your clients? I'm just curious because I think it's such a wonderful book.
Thank you. So all the other books I've written were generally geared toward the owner. This is the first book that I wrote. I had a lot of clients who'd say, David, Scale, great book, but it's for me. Can you write a book that I can give to a team member? Someone who manages our operations or someone who's in charge of our marketing. They need to know this stuff too, but everything else you've written has always been framed from the owner's perspective. And I thought that was a fair comment. It was fair criticism. And so I was really excited to write this book from the perspective of any leader in the business, whether you're a manager, a VP, or the owner, or you're someone who aspires to be one of those things. And so that was probably the most um, rewarding part. I've had many people at events that we used to do in person for clients that their staff has come up to me and said, you know what, this was really helpful. Finally, I get what we've been trying to do all along, because the languaging matched what they would need to hear as a team member, as an employee, as opposed to just for the owner. And it was challenging, because I haven't been an employee before. I've worked with them. I've worked with thousands of team members over the years, but that was a really fun thing to do, and it kind of stretched me in a way that my other books hadn't.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's such a fantastic read.
Thank you.
I think we just, continue just to get people who are excited about this chat. And we're really excited to be able to record it and share it with everyone. I did want to mention that I know people can download the free toolkit, which can you remind us at that year? I just want to make sure people know how to access it.
Yeah, so I'm going to go here. Let me just double check from the book to make sure I'm giving the right URL with that.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
90% certain here. I think it's freedomtoolkit.com, but I'm going to check.
Okay.
Yes, it is freedomtoolkit.com, and and they can get the book there. As a matter of fact, they can get a sneak peek for the first chapter. They want to get a taste for it. But the one thing I would ask her, Carlin, it used to be that what really did wonderful things to share a book was the fact that you had, for example, in this book, Laura Lorber, who's one of the editors at Inc.com, who I write for, and some other places, they give you a wonderful blurb on the back cover. That used to be what people did, but nowadays it's about peers sharing with their other peers. So if
Yeah,
you get the book and love it, I just ask, share it on your Facebook or your Instagram, or put a post up there on Amazon for your review, or on BookPal for your review, or
absolutely.
it would really be something I would appreciate. And I would encourage you. One of the things we did was we put together a reading groups, and as part of the bonus, if you have a team, 5 people, 25 people, 3 people, and you don't know what to do to develop them, we give you a 90-day program to go through the book with your team, including discussion questions. And I would really encourage you to do that. I mean, the only way you're going to make this stuff real is not just to read it, but to start to digest it by doing it in the company. And
Yeah.
if your peers are doing it, the people who you're trying to grow and develop, man, it makes all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. That's so generous. Definitely. I'm going to go check it out too. Well, I just want to thank everybody for being here today, most especially David. If anybody does have questions about the book or wants to reach out for pricing for 25 plus copies for your team, definitely feel free to email me, just KARLYN at bookpal.com.
Can I piggyback on that? Because
Oh, yeah.
we don't get free books ourselves just because I wrote the thing. My publisher doesn't do that. They gave me the initial promo stuff, but we bought from you at BookPal multiple copies for us to use. And I just encourage people, if you're going to do this and you're serious about it, getting copies for your staff. And we actually explored different places for pricing because, again, our publisher wouldn't give it to us for free, that's a different conversation. And of all the places we did, we bought all of our bulk books from BookPal. So I would just put a plug out there, and I think it's a valid one. We've done the research because I'm cheap, but that was the place to go. If you're going to buy multiple copies, you're not going to get better pricing. So, hey.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we definitely want to give people the best value, and certainly just want to continue spreading the word about the Freedom Formula. So thank you for that. We will be sending out this recording to everybody next week, so do stay tuned. And our next AuthorConnect chat will be with Maura Thomas, author of Attention Management, on August 4th at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We do have a couple of winners of today's signed copies. So congratulations to Lisa Peterson, Miguel Corballo, and Jacqueline Lusan. So we will be reaching out to each of you to get your best mailing address so we can send those out. Thank you again, David. And we just want to wish everybody continued safety and healthiness during this time, and keep finding ways to stay connected, learning, and growing.
Thank you, Carlin. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today.